Now we have message waiting indication.
Do you have to modify that indicator function in order to handle different phone sets?
Nope. Nope.
Even the ones that say X messages and stuff like that?
Nope. Asterisk does the right thing. Just have to tell it what mailbox it is, and it takes care of the rest.
Okay. Must be a standard there somewhere.
There is. It's a nice thing about standards is everybody writes their own, but there are some standards out there. Okay, so that's voicemail. Nobody likes voicemail. Okay, let's do, how about an auto attendant menu? That might be useful? All right, let's do that. So I'm going to come down here and create myself a context called menu. Now here I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use an extension called S. And S gets used a lot for auto attendant menus. The only other place that the S extension gets used is when a call comes in on an analog phone line, because there's no extension to go to. I mean, all the system knows, hey, this line is ringing. I picked it up. I answered it. And Astra sends those calls to the S extension as well. But I'm going to use it here because it's an extension that you can't dial from a regular phone. But we're going to add an extension in our user's context to go and dial into this menu. And you'll see why here in just a second. Actually, let's do it a little differently. Let's do it this way first, and then I'll come back and do the S extension. So the first thing I'm going to do is answer the call. The second thing I'm going to do is play back some kind of a menu. Please enter ext of person. I can't remember what the file name is. I'll go look up the file name here in a minute. And then we're going to use another application called background. And what background does is it acts like the playback application, but it accepts touch-tone input from the caller. And once it gets your touch-tone input, it's going to try to find an extension in that current context that matches whatever it is you dialed. So if you press 1, it's going to try to find an extension called 1. If you dial 2, it's going to try to find an extension called 2, and so on and so forth. Okay? So I want the background here, sorry. And then the other thing we want to do is wait just a few more seconds after the prompt is finished playing to give the people a chance to still enter that last input there. So to do that, we use the wait extend application. Wait extend is kind of like background, but it just waits for a few seconds, whatever the system default timeout is. Or you can specify, you can say, hey, I want it to wait an extra 5 seconds. Oops, 5 seconds. Okay, does that make sense? But I'm just going to use the built-in system timeout. There. And then we're going to say, if they dial 1, then we're going to play back Weasels Have Eaten Our Phone System. And if they enter 2, we're going to say the office has been overrun with iguanas. And if they happen to press 3, heaven forbid, they're going to get a bunch of screeching monkeys. All right. Should we give it a try? Should we give it a shot? Oh, the other thing we need here is we need to create ourselves an extension here. Teach you a new application here, the go-to application. We're going to say go to the menu context, extension 123, priority number 1.
You got 1, 2, and 3 in your menu. You possibly need to hang up or something else in case they do something like 5.
We'll get to that. But for right now, we'll just say hang up, and I need to make that priority 4. Okay? We'll come back and talk about invalid entries and timeouts and those sorts of things. Okay? Everybody with me so far? I went through that kind of quickly, but I don't think it's too difficult to follow. Again, so answer the call, play back a sound prompt, this time looking for DTMF input. Give them a few more seconds after the prompt is done playing, then hang up. If they enter 1, 2, or 3, it'll come do one of these things, and then obviously hang up. Question back here.
Is it possible to interrupt the playback of any of those messages? So if I know I want to press 1, do I have to...
With background, once you press a key, it'll stop the playback and immediately just wait for you to in this case, since there's only a single match that starts with 2 or 3, it'll automatically do those. With the 1, it's a little trickier, and I'll show you here. But I want to show you the example and then come back and explain that. Okay? Okay, what did I make that extension? 6006? Oh, I didn't have that sound file. I promised I was going to go look for that sound file, huh? Rlib asterisk sounds English. It's called, oh, I didn't have the file I was looking for. That'll work. Copy and paste that. I should have installed the extra sounds on here, but that's all right. I can do that during our next break. Okay. Reload the dial plan. Let's try that again. Where's the redial?
Please enter the number you wish to call.
Oh, our Office Iguana's prompt wasn't there. Let's try that again.
Please enter the number you... Weasels have eaten our phone system.
Now you notice there was a painful pause right there. Anybody catch why? Extension ambiguity. So what do we mean by that? I'm training people. You guys are as bad as Pavlov's dog, you know? So let me explain what John meant by extension ambiguity. If we do a dial plan show and look at the things in the menu context, do you notice there's two different extensions that start with the number 1? And so when I pressed 1, asterisk was kindly sitting there and saying, well, do you mean 1 or do you mean 1, 2, 3? Does that make sense? When I pressed 2, it went immediately. If I tried 3, let's try 3. I don't know if the sound prompt will be there. There's our screaming monkeys. It went immediately, right? Because there was nothing else possible there that started with a 3. With the 1, it's saying, does he mean 1? Does he mean 1, 2, 3? I'm going to wait a second. Okay, he didn't enter anything. I guess he really meant 1. And then we'll go do that. So one way we can take care of that problem is to change, instead of creating that extension 1, 2, 3 here, we're going to create something that's non-numeric, like S. And here we'll change these to S as well. There, there, and there. Does that make sense? And now, try this again.
Please enter the number you... Weasels.
Just as soon as I press the 1, it tells me that weasels have eaten my phone system. Those darn weasels. Okay, so, can't remember your name. He suggested, well, what happens if they press 4 or 5 or something that's not valid in our menu there? What's going to happen? Let's try that.
Please enter the number you wish to call.
Invalid, hung up the call. Okay? So, how can we handle that? Well, it gives us a hint right there. You see, it says there's no rule I in that menu context. What will happen? What asterisk will do is if there's an invalid entry here, it will automatically send it to an extension called I. And then we can script whatever we want to have happen there. In this case, I'm going to say play back a sound that says invalid, and then go back and play the menu again. We can also do the T extension. That's a timeout if they don't enter anything. That's next. Hold on. You guys can't type that fast. Okay. Dialplan, reload. Try it again.
Please enter the number you wish to
Now I press a 6.
I am sorry. That's not a valid extension. Please try again. Please enter the number you wish to call.
There's my monkeys. Okay? Okay, now for John's sake, he says, no, we should have a little counter in there that keeps track of how many times you go through and after the 3rd time kicks you out. Should we do it? A little more complicated. I've got to... Well, it's actually a good example because I want to introduce the idea of variables. So we can keep track of how many times they go through that menu. So let's use this as a learning exercise. So in asterisk, we have 2 different types of variables. We have what are called channel variables, and those variables live on that particular call. and they last as long as the call lasts. And when the call gets hung up, those variables disappear. We also have global variables, and those apply to all the calls on the system and don't go away when a call gets hung up. Okay? To set a global variable, we would just go up here to our global section. Where is it? And we could set a global variable like Jared equals awesome. And that would create a variable called Jared with a value of awesome. Okay? That's no fun. What we want is a channel variable because we want to count in this particular call how many times have they gone through that menu. Okay? So let's go to our menu here and let's change these to N so that we can make some modifications here. And now let's do this. We're going to use the set application to set a variable. And we're going to say set count equals the value of count plus 1. Okay? And just for the fun of it, let's do one other thing here, and then we'll come add a little more logic. Let's, before we play the background menu, let's use an application called sayNumber just to tell us what the value of count is. Anytime you want the value of a variable, you put a $, curly brace, the name of the variable, close curly brace. Anybody who's done any bash scripting or shell scripting in Linux looks painfully familiar, doesn't it? Not my favorite syntax in the world, but it works. Okay, so this time, every time we go through the menu, it'll say 1, 2, 3. Should we try it?
1. Please enter the number you wish to call. I am sorry, that's not a valid extension. Please try again. 1. Please enter the number you wish to call.
I know what I did wrong. I know exactly what I did wrong. So we first need to initialize this value. So we want to do set count equals 0. And then when we loop back up, we really don't want to go to 1, and it's already been answered, so we really want to come to this label here called start. So we'll just say go to S start. And there too. Does that make sense? Let's try that, see how that works.
0. Please enter the number you wish to call. I am sorry, that's not a valid extension. Please try again. 0. Please enter the number you wish to call.
Oh, I know exactly the problem. Sorry. One other thing I have to introduce here is anytime you want to do math, you have to actually tell it to calculate the value and not just treat it as a string. You need an expression, $, square brackets. Again, I love the syntax. It's just like shell scripting. Everybody got that? So everything in the square brackets there, asterisk is going to evaluate that and return the value. Getting rusty, sorry. Try that one more time. Oops.
One. Please enter the number you wish.
There we go. Now it's working.
I am sorry, that's not a valid extension. Please try again. 2. Please enter the number you wish to call. I am sorry, that's not a valid extension.
So we're halfway there. We're not done yet. Hold your applause till the end.
Enter the number you wish to call. I am sorry.
Okay. So, but now we need a way to kick out and say, hey, if the count is greater than 3, then dive out, right? So that's going to introduce one more application here that's kind of fun. We're going to say go to if. And then we give it an expression. Oops. And then we put a question mark and we say, where should we go if that expression evaluates to true? Well, in this case, we want to come down here to our hang-up, right? So we say go to that label called goodbye. So what should our expression be here? Well, $count is greater than or equal to 3. Okay? Does that make sense? So if it gets to here and count is greater than or equal to 3, it's going to jump down to goodbye and hang up. Otherwise, it'll continue on and say the number and play the menu. What's that? What is the point of the question mark there? It's just the syntax we use in go to if. You have an expression and then a question mark. Where